So my next slide is really addressing some of the fundamental things you need to ask yourself. Not only if you haven't joined a forum yet, but if you're in a forum. So the fundamental question is, what's my purpose for being in a forum? You really need to ask that at a very deep level. Some people I've met who come to forums, their purpose is to maybe network or socialize with like-minded people. And that's fine, but it won't stand the test of time. It isn't an enduring enough purpose. So I think exploring at a deep level, what is going to make it worth your while to spend 4 hours, if you're at a local forum, potentially a month with this group, is a very important question. The next one is, what's my mindset? Am I cynical? Am I waiting to be entertained? Am I, positive about this? Or am I sort of second guessing? Where am I right now? And a very important area is, how do I want to learn and grow? Because I know that Jimmy is very passionate about people in forums growing their personal development, learning all sorts of new things. And I think that's an important thing to consider, because this group of people are there to learn and grow together. And another thing to consider is some of your core values. What are you bringing to the party? Because your core values and their core values have to be aligned so that you can actually create deep relationships that are meaningful over time. So one of the things I've created here is a little framework just for you to consider when joining a forum, or even if you're in a forum already, to sort of gauge what are the biggest challenges that I'm going to be facing in my life potentially this year. I mean, January would be a great time to do that. A little bit of kind of life plan of the sort of things that you're going to be confronting this year. What is keeping me awake at night, personally, emotionally, professionally? What is my biggest success areas, that I want to really accomplish with my forum? And what are the key learnings and arrival points I want to focus on? Now, I really highly recommend that everyone has a very top-line learning calendar, if you like, for the year, so that they can bring different stimuluses in, different inputs, a bit like today, maybe different facilitators who can help. Because I think all too often, some forums can just dry up because they're not stimulating the learning. So I just wanted to say that up front, that is a very important part of being in a forum, is not only emotionally connecting, communing with each other on some of your bigger challenges, both personally and professionally, but also going, what do I want to learn here? How do I want to raise my game? What means a lot to me in business that I want to accomplish? What books do we want to read and discuss together? So it really becomes, a learning group as well as a supportive group. So in order to do that, we have to create, I call it a container of safety. And in a container of safety, we have to put in the things in there that are important to create the atmosphere that allows us to feel that we can fully express ourselves. So one of the very important things that I would put in a container of safety would be the spirit of confidentiality. What goes on in the room stays in the room. What I say and what my information is private forever and ever. We take it to the grave. Your information is private, my information is private. What else do you think? I'm just interested, Shilpi, in maybe you passing the microphone around and letting us know what other people feel is an important element to create in the room as an atmosphere. So we've talked about confidentiality. What else do we need to co-create to make sure that we are experiencing openness and trust in the room? Shilpi, I wondered if you could give the microphone to one or two volunteers who would just throw out a few words like trust, openness, confidentiality. What else do we need in the space to ensure that people are feeling open and willing to share?
Yeah, we have one volunteer here. Just a moment. Your name, please.
Hi, I'm Kanav Junjunwala. Maybe something like similar priorities. Like if all the members, their priorities are aligned, that they all want to learn and move ahead, as opposed to something as like you mentioned, socializing. Maybe that would be more important as well.
Absolutely. I think that's a very important point as well. Joint purpose. Thank you. Someone else.
Hi, so my name is Rahul Handa, and I think for someone who's getting into a forum for the first time, I think there's always that fear of being judged from the fact that there are other people who've been in a forum for years, decades, maybe. So I think that's I think one thing I would put into the container of safety. And if I may add, probably I think a lot of us, friends, family, are not, we listen, but not with the intent of listening. So, I wouldn't want to share something with someone if they don't have the intent of actually listening. So I think that would be it. Thanks.
Thank you. That's a really wonderful answer, because a lot of people can stop talking and wait for their turn, but they're not really listening. And I think the quality in a forum is almost reverent. You walk in and it's a very different space to a social space. And listening with no judgment is such a refreshing experience for people. Do we have anyone else, Shilpi?
Yeah, Andro, you did mention that it would not stand the test of time unless there is a purpose. But what happens over a period of time where the purpose needs to be redefined, because purpose has lost its validity. So is it a timeless purpose, or that it may be the same river, but the waters have changed and therefore you need to renew something, the purpose?
I love that, because nothing is forever. And those of you in the group that are married and have families will know that you have to recreate purpose. A lot of people I meet, they're in a relationship for many years, a really good marriage, the kids have flown, and these big events can really rock the marriage, because our purpose was, to get a house together, to have kids, to see them go to uni. Now what? And they have to recreate purpose at that point in their lives. And the ones that do it well survive. The ones that don't and are still depending on a past purpose often reach very difficult experiences in the river, as you put it, because sometimes that river is very rocky. And it's the same with a forum. You are a growing organism, and the system will change over time. So I really love that every now and again we do need to recreate the purpose. We need to redefine why we're here, what are we doing, and get some fresh ideas in there. Absolutely. Thank you. So this is something I would do at the beginning of every forum meeting, is just to check in and then just re-engage that we do have confidentiality, we have a spirit of listening, openness, trust. We're not sanitizing what we say. We're willing to leave our comfort zone. There's a number of things you will co-create as a forum, and they become kind of your norm of the way you work around here, the way you do things around here. Some of you may have seen something like this before. It's called The Theory U, and it's by a wonderful guy called Otto Sharma. Now, often when we want to achieve something in life, we are under this misguided illusion that we can go from point A, which is here, to point B. So let's say I want to lose weight. I may say, oh dear, I need to lose a stone. And someone says, here we go, here's a diet. Bang, you've lost the weight. Well, it doesn't happen that way, does it? It's a little bit more difficult. And it's the same with forums. When we join a forum, we often come in with a kind of a judgmental head. Like, is this going to work? Will they know what I need? Am I going to be stimulated? Do I even like these people? There's going to be a lot of kind of judgments, and we need to open our mind to possibilities. Then the next layer is we need to come away from our cynicism, and we need to open our hearts through having skin in the game, from disclosing, from talking openly from the heart, not from the head. And then we need to let go of some of our beliefs that are holding us back. You may have come into your forum, or you may be intending to go into a forum with some beliefs like, I don't trust people, I'm not going to give 100%, I'll just wait and see, or whatever, I don't know, I'm making it up. But you have to let go of some of those beliefs and be open to getting new beliefs, ones that really support you in life. And you have to come down to this level, which is letting go of your fears, opening up your will, and being willing to tap into some of your blind spots, the things that you can't see about yourself. Having faith that there are things there that you've got to learn, and questioning, who am I? What's my purpose? What do I want in life? And once you've bottomed it out, we call it doing the heavy lifting. You can start to come up the way here, upside, into starting to have an open heart, an open will, and an open mind. And then you're embodying something very different. Now, some of the forums I've worked with have been together for 20 years. That is an activated forum. Sadly, some forums are not activated. They go through the motions, they meet, but the individuals are not really getting enough value out of it. And part of the talk today is to say, what do you need to bring to the party to make sure that you and everyone else gets more value? So you've got to be prepared to go down the tube and do some heavy lifting if you're going to get there. This is a fundamental shift you're going to have to make if you want your forum to work. Now, I'm making an assumption that most people in the audience feel very safe in their head. In your head, you've got a six-pack. Those of you who go to the gym, you are well ripped, as they say, in this area. You do a lot of weightlifting. You're extremely good at problem solving. People call you and say, I've got a problem. You're bang in there, solving the problem. You're very good at being rational, logical. Anyone prepared to say they like to give advice? Let's just have a show of hands. Just lift your hand if you'd like to give advice. Thank you. I know I do. And then I like to get a big tick and go, you were right. What you said was right. Coming up with solutions, being logical. In this space, we're also shallow breathing. So we're not necessarily breathing with our whole body. We're breathing in an upper chest area. And we're feeding our head, and we're judgmental, we're analytical, we're opinionated. We like to do a lot of talking. And that's kind of our IQ, if you like. But in forum, we have to very rapidly travel the longest journey from the head to the heart. When we get into a heart space, we're very different. We're calm, listening with our whole selves, a bit like the gentleman earlier who said about listening in an active way, not just listening to be waiting for you to say your thing. You're listening because you're really taking in, you're empathizing. None of this is just speaking, but a lot is going on. There's a lot of activity in active listening, even though you're not talking. You're having feelings. You're tapping into your emotions. You're having insights that come from a deeper place within you. It's almost a spiritual connection here. You're breathing in a much deeper way. You're probably accessing those beta and theta waves rather than the alpha waves where you're up here in your head, moving very fast. Here you're much slower and you're being creative and you're in a flow. Now, the forums I work with, even though they say they find it difficult, always get into a heart space. And when they get into a heart space, they are completely different beings. They're talking in a different way, they're saying different things, and they're no longer that CEO that is coming from all this stuff that they do all day. They move into a very, very different space. So I just want to ask at this stage, because this is quite a big idea. Shilpi, if you're there, I just want to ask, has anyone got any observations to make about moving from that IQ to the EQ space. Of course, we need to use them together, but if I was to get rid of one of these, it would be this. I would just get rid of this.
My question, Andro, is that ultimately when we move and make this journey from the head to the heart, how would we know that we have arrived? Is it going to be feelingly? Or is there a process which is there in the forum to say that you are not the same person you've transformed with this journey from head to heart? Will others give the feedback, or would I feel it? Is it feelingly measured, or is it some other way?
Well, that's a very good question. And part of this talk, I'm going to do a little practical session later on where you're going to hopefully experience it a little bit more. But the evidence, the way it's evidenced in forum is your communication style changes. You will be having emotions. Some people maybe, actually cry when they're a lot of feelings, they get very emotional. You're expressing words that talk about your emotions, and you feel people at a very different level. It's not necessarily transformation as such, but you are accessing different part of you. And I know you know that feeling when you've been moved by a film, or you're talking to a loved one and you well up and you're connected very deeply. That's what I'm talking about. The style of communication just changes, its shift. You change gear. You're no longer in that very high level headspace. You've come down and you've landed, and you sort of take this out breath and go, I can actually be myself. And I tell people when they come to retreats, leave your armor at the door. Because if you're doing forum with your armor on, and sometimes armor looks like this, you're never going to get there. And there are tools, and I'm showing you some today, but there are tools you can do in a forum, like the check-in, like some breathing exercises, like some of these heart opener type icebreakers that gradually get you into that space of the heart. Because you're busy people with very busy lives, and you've probably arrived in forum after a very long traffic jam, frustrating meeting, all sorts of problems going on, and you arrive and you're going to be in this space. So you've got to treat yourself gently and give yourself the time to get into this space. You're not just going to walk in and be in heart space. So there should always be some time right at the beginning of the meeting with the right protocols that help you move into this lower gear.
Andro, that was very interesting what you offered, and one of the evidence you or whatever it is you presented is that the language will change and some may even cry. This question is maybe a little out of curiosity, since you have so much of experience. Is it easier for women to make that journey than guys, from what you just expressed in terms of emotions and feelings and stuff like that?
Well, let me tell you, that's a lovely question. I love it, because 99% of the work I do is with men. Sadly to say, most members of forums tend to be men. Of course, I work with spouses. But I tell you what, there's very rare that I've been on a retreat or run a forum session where there's not been tears from the men. That's the first thing to say. So all men can do this. It's just that when it's all men together, sometimes they find it a little bit more tricky. The other thing I would say is that the women access heart in an easier way. And it's years of, conditioning, being with children, multi-focus, we're wired differently. So women do have more access, but I wouldn't say the men don't get there, because they do.
Great. Andro, hi, it's Farhan here. It's been wonderful hearing you speak and giving our members an insight into the world of forums and the exact procedures and protocols. Speaking about the head-to-heart transition, I absolutely love the analogy and the feelings behind it. Would I be right in saying by heart, and the example you gave of leaving your armor with the actions and the language that you use in the head mindset, in the heart mindset, we're trying to be vulnerable? to our forumites. Also, I do know that in forum, one of the goals is not just individual growth, but also shared growth. So in that, how important is it? How important is vulnerability and also being mindful with your language and actions of other people or my other forumites? So if they share something and if I were to react in a particular way, if I didn't follow just alt mindset, or if I were to break secrecy, if I were to do anything else, how could you please explain a bit more about how your actions also has a negative impact on your fellow forumites' forum experience?
Yes, I think the important thing to say is that all that is true. You have to obviously observe confidentiality, all the ground rules and the protocols that I'm sure you've heard from other speakers. But I think if someone is being vulnerable, which is they've taken the armor off and they're communicating their deepest, darkest soul, and you say something judgmental, or you do something really silly like you have to go outside because you need the loo, or you need to take a quick phone call, you break that moment and it will be taken very heavily by the person because they've exposed themselves, they've expressed themselves. So at that point, you have to create a very gentle space of listening and thanking each other for sharing. And you have to treat each other very gently at this stage, because anything you say that is judgmental or advice giving or premature can really upset the person. I think that's kind of what you're alluding to. So just like when you're trying to coax a child who's shy out of a shell, you have to be sensitive with each other, because although you're big CEOs, when it comes to the heart space, you're very vulnerable and you're very soft, and you have to be treated with kid gloves. Does that make sense? I'm moving on because there'll be more time for questions later. Thank you so much for these wonderful questions. So one of the things, as I was introduced, I do a lot of work with top teams and executive coaching. And through my many years of experience, I have distilled it, what makes a thriving team. And in this case, it's a forum I'm talking about, but you can also use this material to think about your management team. And the one thing I've noticed is that teams that thrive, teams that are productive, and teams that really win the games are the ones that have these 4 key pillars in place. I think a gentleman earlier mentioned the word alignment. There needs to be alignment. That is a common purpose, values, and a healthy culture. They have to be aligned, going in the same direction. They don't need to agree with everything, but they do need to agree about where they're going. There needs to be a sense of belonging, a sense of, we call it psychological safety, where you can admit mistakes, you can be yourself. You don't need to walk into a forum and feel you need to be better than everyone else or more impressive than everyone else or have more qualifications. Of course, that goes on at some level at the headspace, but ultimately we're all equal because we're all human. And you've got to get that sense of, I belong here, I've earned my right to be here, just like everyone else. Even if the guy next to you has got a company that's 10 times the size of yours, you still belong and you still have a valid reason for being there. Then the next thing is breakthrough, which is every forum, if it's going to be activated and enduring for many, many years and give you what you need, has to allow for feedback, courageous conversations, healthy, underlined, healthy conflict, and permission to clear the air. And I'm going to go into these in a little bit more detail in a minute and give you a chance to respond. And then the final one here is support mechanisms to sustain the team over time. Protocols to protect the well-being, the creativity, the innovation, the learning path. Okay, so those are my 4 pillars. And any of you who are interested, I can provide you with some survey questions that you could do periodically with your teams and your forums to check how we're doing on these, because they tell you very, very quickly where you're bleeding. And I'm really happy to share that with you. So just moving to the first one here. Now, I don't have my image coming up, but never mind. Alignment. So in an aligned forum, we experience a strong sense of meaning and purpose. We have a set of values that we all buy into. For instance, we agree to be confidential. That's a core value because we have integrity. We have a sense of honesty. We collaborate, we contribute. We are all agreeing about our vision about the journey and where we're going with this. Now, it does astound me when I go to some forums and they haven't even talked about their mission, their vision, their purpose, or the game they're playing. And I'd like to ask you a question. When you were a young kid on a playground and you saw a bunch of people playing, a bunch of kids, what is the first question you might ask a team of kids that are having a lot of fun playing, and you walk up to them? What's the first question you ask? Shilpi, could you hand over the microphone to someone who's willing to answer, please?
Okay, we have Kanan.
Probably ask what game this is.
Thank you. That's the first question. Big tick. What game are we playing? What's the next question you might ask?
Hi, Vishesh here. So the next question would be, what are the teams? So if there are teams.
Yeah, it could be. That's quite a technical question. Even before that, what might you ask? What are we playing and...
Can I play?
Thank you. Can I play? So on some level, that's what we're asking when we join a forum. We may not say it so simply like lovely kids do, but if you're a kid, that's all you need to know. What are we playing? Can I play? You're checking out, are you invited in to play, and can you have some fun with everyone else? That we're still seeking that, even though we may be big CEOs, we join a forum and we're saying, can I play? And what are we playing? So you do have to have that conversation about what are we playing? When do we count it a goal? What is the game that we're all scoring here? And I just want to ask the team to consider, I want you all to consider this actually. Have you ever had an experience of being in a team or a family or a peer group where there is no alignment, where you think people are pulling in different directions? And how does it feel when you're in a team where the game isn't very clear?
This is Manoj. I have been in a situation where there was a family dispute of a cousin, and the goal was, let's say, succession of a will. Somebody passed away. I mean, it typically happens a lot here. And when there was no clarity, so everybody had their own personal agenda that they wanted to gain most out of it. And nobody was, everybody was pulling in their direction. Why not me? Why less to me? X percentage, Y percentage. So I could see the whole energy negative. And, finally nothing came out of it because everybody is not looking at the larger picture on settling down. So this is one example I wanted to share.
That's excellent. And I think also in its wake, that can create toxicity, breakdown of the family, and all sorts of things can happen. Conflict can happen when there's no alignment. So alignment is absolutely key. And when there's alignment, it's just everything moves so smoothly. So making sure at an early stage, and everything I say, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, can be translated into your business. So I'm a business consultant, first and foremost. And I can tell you that if there's no alignment in a business, it won't be productive and profitable. On some level, it breaks down. So there needs to be a very clear strategy, purpose, vision, values. And I think the same goes with the forum. You can't just muddle through together with no clear vision. And so this is the first conversation to have, one of the early ones to have with your forum. And if somebody new joins a forum, a new peer joins the forum, you need to revisit these questions, because they bring in a whole different set of values and they may want different things. So they can't inherit the vision and values you've co-created. You have to include theirs in the picture. So if you're the new person, one of the things that's worth asking is, Do we have norms? Do we have a vision and mission? And if not, can we have that discussion? Okay. So I'm moving on to the next pillar here. This one, belonging, is very, very important. People cannot be creative if they experience fear. They can take an instruction, but you won't get creativity. Again, it's the same in business, don't rule with fear, rule with inspiration and creativity. And in a forum, everybody has to have a strong sense of belonging, and we also call it psychological safety. What that really means is, it means that psychologically they feel they're okay with everyone, even though they may say the wrong thing, make a mistake, do a blunder, because ultimately there's a sense of unconditional love for each other. And I use that word deliberately because human beings need to feel that they belong and they're cared for in the forum, that everyone has their back, that their secrets won't be revealed, that the relationship is going to be thriving. And Google did a big study called the Project Aristotle. You may have heard of it. And they interviewed hundreds and hundreds of people in teams in Google. And they said, what makes you productive and what gives you that sense that you really want to stay here? And it wasn't the socializing after work, and it wasn't the building, and it wasn't the salary, but it was the psychological safety was the highest scoring element. So people who feel they belong stay in the job. So I'm just going to ask the audience, what does it feel like when you are in a group where you just don't feel you belong? I just want some sharing from the group. Has anyone had that sense that they don't quite fit in here?
So I just want to share a recent experience. I attended a conference in Delhi, and it was a conference about 30 people. And out of that 29, all of them had PhDs, were Dr. X, Dr. Y. And then my name came, it was just Kanav Jhunjhunwala. So I felt like a bit of an imposter out there. Everyone has PhDs and doctors. So I felt a bit disconnected from the rest of the group and in the contributions, because we were having intense discussions, brainstorming. I feel like, what can I contribute that someone else will not be able to? What value can I add here? So felt a bit disconnected, and definitely that sense of belonging is very important.
Yes, thank you. And I've got to say, thanks for your vulnerability, by the way, and your honesty there. And I know we've all felt that imposter syndrome. But the truth is, we are our own worst critic, because I bet that things you said were really helpful and you brought different things to the party. Maybe you don't have a PhD, but you have sensitivity, you have a heart, I can hear already you've got vulnerability. So you were bringing something very different. Maybe you were bringing a sense of heart space to them. So there's always something to be valued. So how does it feel when you do get that sense of clunk, click and belonging? Has anyone had that feeling where they're in a team and they go, I really feel I belong here, it's fantastic?
Hi, this is Priyanka. Thank you for all that you're sharing. It makes so much sense. When you feel belonged, you thrive, and you consider whether it is business, it's relationship, whatever it be, you will put your 100% to it, and you want to give in the best. You'll also have the ownership of it. You'll go an extra mile to do whatever it needs to be done. But if you don't feel belong to that place, you're lost within yourself, and what am I doing here? And hence that belonging is very, very, very critical and very essential, is what I'd say. Thank you.
I love that. You thrive. You use one of my favorite words. There's a lovely feeling when you're thriving. You feel you're seen. People see who I am inside. And that brings productivity, it brings flow, it brings creativity. So although it sounds like an easy thing, it isn't that easy to create an atmosphere where everyone gets that sense of belonging, they're equal. And there's a lot of things in forum that you can do to make people feel that they belong. Number one, you don't have one member dominating the discussions. He may have a PhD, but he doesn't get to dominate the discussions, or somebody who really over talks and takes up everyone else's time. There's got to be a sense of deep democracy. Everybody gets a turn and everyone is as important as the next person. So thank you for that share around belonging. That sense of belonging for people to feel they can thrive. They're really desperate to come to the forum because they feel so good about themselves when they're there. And it's a bit like, when you're hosting something at home and you have friends come over, you want them to feel comfortable, that they're welcome, that they belong. You've all got to co-create that space of belonging for your forum. Okay, can't stress it enough. So my next pillar here is breakthrough. If people can never tolerate arguments or conflict or clearing the air, to be honest, it's not a proper relationship. I just want to throw something out there. If you think about some of the relationships you've had with friends over years, colleagues, sometimes they've had a bit of a glitch or a blip, and there's been some feedback or a little bit of an argument, and then you've cleared the air and you've moved on probably. If you cannot stand in the darkness, you cannot stand in the light. Relationships that cannot sustain any clearing the air or conflict are very weak, because we call them fair weather friends. It's never always going to be good news. With your family members, sometimes there's little arguments, there's little rows, but then we come back together and it's all wonderful again. And it's the same with the forum. If someone in a forum has upset you and you don't say anything, that wound is going to fester and it's going to grow. And the next time you see them, you're going to be maybe not sitting next to them. Then the next forum where you see them, you might be even talking to some other people outside about how you find that person a little bit difficult, because that's what we do when we don't have the courage to bring it up directly with the person. We might look for agreement, like, so-and-so isn't very nice. But the main thing I would say in a forum is people have to clear the air with each other, usually on a one-to-one. So let's say I'm doing some deep share and somebody decides to leave the room and take a phone call, that would upset me. And it would be really important for me to clear the air with Mr. X to say, Ravi, last week when I was sharing, I noticed you left the room at a point where I was feeling very sensitive. That really hurt me. And I'm just curious, am I important to you in this forum? It's important for me to bring it to their attention. Now, we have a guideline, or rather I have a guideline that I sometimes encourage people in YPO and EO to use, which is, if you have something out with me, you bring it to my attention privately. Because if you bring it up in the main forum, you spill my blood. That's what we say. Because I don't need the whole forum to hear, because it's embarrassing and I feel ganged up upon. But if it's something to do with the whole forum, so the whole forum is consistently showing up late, or they're sloppy, or they're trying to take calls, or something like that, then I would bring it up with the whole forum, okay? And the ground rule around this is, you take it to the source. You don't tell everybody else, you don't gossip, you don't tell everyone else in the forum about what's not working, you take it to the person who can actually make a difference to it. And just something I want to share with you, I was part of a big consulting company for many years, and I joined in my late 20s. That was some time ago, not that long ago, but some time ago. And the first day I was there, somebody upset me. But I didn't have the courage, because I was new, to go directly to that person. So I went to a friendly face and I said, my God, that manager, they're really scary. And they said, have you told them? I said, no. They said, take it to the source. So I was a bit shocked. A few days later, something else happened with another one of the senior managers. And I went again to another friendly face and I said, so-and-so's a bit harsh. I felt quite upset the way he spoke to me. Have you told them? No, take it to the source. And in this company, we had a ground rule that if you needed to clear the air, you could interrupt anyone at any point in the day And there were specific rooms that we had allocated for clearing the air and giving feedback. And you could do that, and it was encouraged. And I tell you what, there was no gossip in this company. It was thriving. And I still have relationships with those consultants now, all these years on, because our relationships were based on trust. There was no gossip. We had clean relationships and good integrity. So that is something, if you would like to borrow it for your forum, take it to the source. You could have that as part of your norms. So I just want to ask you, how does it feel when you have a relationship where something has happened, but you've not mentioned it, but you're feeling upset? How does it feel to be in that relationship or in the forum or in the meeting?
The question was, I really like the idea of take it to the source, but a lot of times it's, let's say I'm afraid that my point of view or what the real cause of the thing is what I want to address, I don't know how to word it, I don't know how to say it, and that can lead to, in the heat of the moment, me saying something that's not actually the real cause of the problem, or it can lead to a real free flow and an argument. So to avoid this in forum, is there any structured way to have sort of a conflict resolution or to bring up particular things that I might feel my forumite has done to hurt me or I'm feeling upset with? So, is there any tips, any tricks, or any particular way that we can pick it up? And as me being a part of a forum, if I don't want to address the entire forum as a whole, but only one particular member, I feel last Saturday you did this, or last meeting you did this. So is there a way to do it in a, let's say, proper structured manner to prevent a free-flowing kind of unstructured, unregulated, and make it into a petty fight vis-a-vis trying to de-escalate and get back onto trusting and vulnerable basis?
That's an excellent question. And I'm going to say this very simply, because obviously we could do a whole training on this. It's basically the facts, keep it really simple. You walked out of the room when I was sharing. The feelings, I felt undermined, upset, and excluded. And you can even add this little thing, which is sometimes to make it really show that you've understood the story I can make up about this. Or you can say, it makes me think that you might be feeling that you don't like me, I'm not as important to you. So the story I'm making up about this behavior is that I'm not important to you. I just want to check out my reality. That's all you do. And then the person will say, I understand, hopefully, I made you feel excluded. I really apologize. I just had to take the call because my wife's pregnant or whatever and is having a baby. But the main thing is that you don't waffle, you don't make accusations and assumptions, but you stick to the facts, your feelings, very important, and maybe how they made you feel, what story you made up about them, and that's it. You keep it really simple. I hope that answers your question. If it's a bigger thing like a conflict resolution, I would highly recommend you use a third party, like a moderator, to help you with that. We call it crossing the bridge. So there's listening going on. So A says his side of the story, B recaps, B says their side of the story, A recaps, and then hopefully there's an apology. I hope that helps and answers that question. But the spirit of what I'm saying is, if you want your forum to be enduring and you want it to break through and go to higher levels, you've got to be willing to clear the air. If it's about the whole forum, do it in the public space. If it's about an individual, do it one-to-one. I just want to say that one of the ways of getting into the heart space is through a deeper breathing meditation, which I probably haven't got time to do, but it doesn't take very long. And we go into a deeper space of meditation.